Dosto, welcome to MA TV studio. As you know by now, the program's name is Sathi Ke Sang Sang. This program can be in English, it can be in Punjabi, Hindi, Urdu, even Gujarati. As the elections are coming up on 7th of May, not very far now, people are geared up actually towards these elections. And as always, I always ask you to go and vote on that day. Do not miss the chance. It is a very valuable thing you have, which is the vote. In a democratic country, vote is very powerful. So you must go and vote. Last week, we interviewed a prospective parliamentary candidate, and the week before also. This week again, we got Labour Party parliamentary candidate Ruth Cadbury. Ruth Cadbury is known local and respected. Ruth has lived in Brentford for 30 years with her husband Nick. They have two sons who were both educated at local schools. As one of Hounsloh's leading councillors with a track record of 20 years of standing up for people locally, some of Ruth's achievements are: Ruth helped kickstart Hounslow Town Centre's regeneration. In response to Tory welfare cuts, she initiated Hounslow Food Box, which provides crisis food parcels locally. Ruth has also fought of a better deal for residents affected by Heathrow noise, helping secure £25 million from the airport for local schools to improve noise insulation. Ruth's professional background is in community development and town planning. Working for Planning Aid, she helped residents navigate the planning system. And there are so many other achievements which we will be talking about later on during the program. First of all, let me welcome Ruth. Ruth Cadbury, welcome to our studio. Thank you very much for coming.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
We have met before, but in different circumstances. Yeah. But now I'm sure you at least, you're in the fighting mood, yeah?
I am. I'm fighting to win Brentford and Isleworth constituency, which is the eastern half of the London Borough of Hounslow. Right. And I'm very much enjoying the campaign, but it's hard work, and it's a very marginal seat. With a Conservative MP who won in 2010 with just under 2,000 votes. So I'm determined to overturn that majority and be the Labour MP.
Yeah. As I say to all the people who come here, prospective parliamentary candidates, my best wishes are with you.
Thank you very much, sir.
And then we got another guest, Amrit Mann. He was born in 1963 in Punjab. And Amrit and his sister Simranjeet Kaur Mann emigrated to the UK in September 1967 with their mother to join their father who was a teacher. Yes. Yeah, he's retired now. At university, Amrit has had his first real interaction with the Labour Party when he joined as a member in 1984. Then, having gained a BSc from the University of Hertfordshire, he decided to work for himself in the property business and then in the computer industry. As a ward member of the local Labour Party, an opportunity availed itself, and Amrit was successfully elected in 1994 on the council of the London Borough of Hounslow. Amrit continued in the computer business whilst remaining an elected councillor. You have been mayor also.
I have, yeah.
So again, we will be talking about you. You are LLM, and you're basically a solicitor really in the law. Both of you, you're both councillors, and Hounslow is a very important borough, mainly because of Heathrow Airport, where millions of people, go out and travel in. Let's talk about Heathrow itself, first of all. When we talk about the third runway, are you in favor or against, or what?
I've been opposed to the third runway at Heathrow for over 12 years now. I think it's absolutely essential that Heathrow retains its position, and it surely will do, as Britain's leading airport. It serves the world, it serves Britain, it serves London. It employs tens of thousands of people and stimulates, it is the major stimulant to the local economy. You know, there's no doubt that it will and it must retain its position as Britain's premier airport. But it also disrupts the lives and affects the health of a couple of 200,000 or 300,000 people who live underneath the flight paths and where the congestion, traffic congestion, affects our daily lives. So I think the balance has to be made between allowing Heathrow to retain its position, but without needing for it to grow. Hounslow, we did a study a couple of years ago to see whether if expansion didn't go ahead at Heathrow, whether jobs would be lost at Heathrow, and we found that there would be no job losses at Heathrow if expansion didn't go ahead there.
I can understand the noise pollution situation which you were referring to, and you have worked very hard actually getting £25 million grant from the government to give to local schools and houses for noise insulation. So basically when we talk about third runway, when I talk to people, working class people, because in Southall, Hounslow, Slough, all these people, most of them, they're working at Heathrow Airport. And they are saying that if we don't have third runway, we will have no more jobs apart from what we have now.
Well, I mean, West London is one of the most prosperous parts of Britain in terms of jobs. Unemployment is very, very low. So, you know, the jobs are there both at Heathrow and in associated and other sectors. I mean, West London, it has some of the most fastest growing industries and fastest growing businesses in the UK, and often they're finding it difficult to compete for skilled staff, non-skilled staff and housing.
The people who are in favour of third runway, which means further expansion and further jobs, somebody said is 75,000 more jobs can be created by this expansion. So there are opposite views of yours, and there are, as you said, there are some people who are concerned about the noise. As a country,
can I just? I mean, I think, you know, if it is true that 75,000 additional people would work at Heathrow, expansion went ahead, you know, where are those people now? Because, as I say, we're not in an area of high unemployment. We are in a very robust economic situation compared with the rest of the UK in West London. I mean, if we were in an area of regeneration and high unemployment, and Heathrow was the only game in town, then its growth would probably be have a different priority. But many of the people I talk to, you know, in Hounslow Heath, Hounslow, and Isleworth, many people do work at Heathrow, but also live underneath the flight path. And there's many people in Heston and Osterley and Brentford who live in an area that would have extreme noise where they don't at the moment. Well, so it's a balance. And we think the
population is going up. We are building more houses in these areas. Absolutely. We are building flats and everything. The place where I live is Sarai Slip area. These developers, they are buying the houses with the big gardens, then they are having a lot of flats there. So there are people, those 75,000 people will come when there are jobs there. Anyway, that's a separate discussion. And
but I mean, it would yet, growth at Heathrow would yet further add to the pressure on housing and so on in other services.
I respect your views. Mr. Mann, what do you think of this? Do you think we should have third runway and create more jobs?
Well, let me start with the council's position. The council position that we want a better and not a bigger Heathrow. I think it all stems from 10, 15 years when we were trying to engage Heathrow. And I know Ruth was the lead member at that time, and there was a difficult relationship. The relationship has changed somewhat. And I think there is a new realization that we have to be partners. We have to be good neighbours. So looking back in all the work that Ruth did in those days, and she was very, very instrumental in making sure some of the key groundwork was done. And we wanted Heathrow to take responsibility as a good neighbour. Now, the starting point was, whilst there were jobs, there was also an impact to the residents that lived in Hounslow and the wider boroughs in terms of noise pollution, but also in terms of pollution generally, i.e. generated through traffic and aircraft pollution. So these things have an adverse impact on the health of the residents that live in Hounslow, but also
I've got to give you the opposite view.
Sure.
That is that from Heathrow Airport, there was one time when people coming from Canada and America, they used to go through London. Now they go through France. Now they go through Schiphol Airport and Frankfurt. The reason being that that Heathrow Airport is so congested that you are circling, on the top there, you can't find the landing space.
Well, I was.
And the argument from the argument from the authority, airport authority, is that if we have the third runway, situation will be easier. We will generate more.
I think there's
wealth.
two different issues. One is whether or not we need an additional runway in the southeast of England, and I think I think the argument is probably there. There is definitely a need for an additional runway in London and southeast. The next question is whether it should be at Heathrow, which is already one of the covers one of the noisiest built-up areas in the UK, or it's reached its limit, and expansion there would affects many more people because the flights are over a very built-up area of West London, or whether the expansion could be at, say, Gatwick, which would be cheaper, quicker, less, would not impose on the public purse at all. The space is there, and the numbers of people affected by the noise would be 5% of those affected at Heathrow. And I mean, we do know that there's increasing scientific evidence of the impact of noise, and particularly noise at night, and the waves of aircraft noise on people's health, people's respiratory health, cardiovascular health, as well as how children learn at school, which is why we fought so hard to get the 25
million. Well, the flights start at 6 o'clock in the morning.
They start at 4:15.
Well,
yeah.
4:15?
Yeah.
Because I was at the airport yesterday and I checked it especially.
Yeah, we have 16 flights on average from between 4 and 6 a.m. And then
and in the evening it stops at 11?
It stops, well, it should stop at 11:30. It's often later than that. Yeah.
All right, let's move on from Heathrow to, which is very talked about subject in these elections, is NHS. Yeah. Conservative Party, they are saying you will get the surgery hours from 8 to 8 o'clock. You can see your doctor all 7 days. I don't know whether that is feasible or not. You are going to say something different, I'm sure. And the Labour Party is saying that we guarantee that you will get the appointment within 48 hours. Now, to achieve that goal, you got to have, am I right in saying 8,000 doctors, 20,000 nurses, and 3,000 care workers, yes?
Yes, that's right.
Now, 8,000 doctors, where are they coming from? Are we going to train them? If we were going to train them, because a doctor needs to study for at least 10 years, 7 years at least, 5 to 7 years. So during the next parliamentary time, we will not have the trained doctors. So if you start now, by the time the 5 years end, that doctor will be ready to take over.
Well, I mean, and we also have a lot of doctors working part-time, and we have doctors who are semi-retired, and we also, there are doctors who might be working in other parts of the world. I think it's important to have an aspiration, because we're not going to achieve the target of people being able to see the doctor within a reasonable time unless we do train and recruit. And I think it's really important to have an ambition, because the NHS is the issue that is brought up most on the doorsteps. It is the most important issue, and we have to invest in it. We have to protect it, and that's why we in the Labour Party have aspirations and commitments that we funded and they're deliverable. So
you are saying that the doctors who are working part-time at the moment, you will say work full-time. The people who get, the doctors who get early retirement, you will request them to stay on. And the rest of the doctors you will perhaps import from India and other parts of the world. Is that right?
Well, I mean, there are details behind the commitment, but I think it's absolutely right to have a commitment because the demands on the NHS are getting greater. People are getting older, they're living longer, they have more care needs, and the population is increasing. So, it is important that we do recruit and retain more doctors, but also nurses and care workers. And there's many things we can do that could reduce pressure on doctors. So if you have better social care and earlier intervention with people and more primary health workers as well, then then people will get support before things get critical and they need to go to a doctor. So it's got to be looked at as a whole in a holistic way, but it's got to be from the perspective of believing in an NHS that is free at the point of entry and that we retain that valuable institution that people in the UK care so much about. Because what we've seen...
I want to pick up that point, I'm sorry. I want to pick up that point where you say that the doctors who are doing part-time work, you will lure them to get full-time job, and the doctors who are retiring early, you will ask them to stay on. And then there are a lot of doctors who have emigrated from here to Australia, Canada and America. I go to America and Canada quite a lot, and my own brother is a doctor there, and his friends, his daughter is a doctor and so on. There are a lot of people in my own family who are doctors there. They are making a lot of money there. To bring them back, we need money. Now, Mr. Mann,
can I just say, I think quite a lot of our doctors have emigrated, not so much for the money, but because of the stress. They've been put under inordinate stress. They're often blamed for when things go wrong and expected to do more and more with less and less. And I think that in the last 5 years, the NHS, the morale in the NHS has really dipped. So a lot of people who could get jobs abroad have gone abroad, and I think we need to we need to have an NHS that actually believes in a good, effective health service and supports those who work in it.
Because
and I don't think it's just about money. I don't think
Ruth, it is important to talk about money, isn't it? Yeah. A Conservative Party, they are saying we will invest £8 billion in NHS.
And they haven't been
able
to
to inject £8 billion. And the Labour Party is saying 2.5 billion. There's a difference there.
Yeah,
2.5.
We're saying at the present time that we'll invest an additional 4.5 billion over and above what's there at the moment. But our commitment is funded with a combination of the mansion tax, tobacco tax, an additional tax on the very wealthy. As many of your viewers may have seen, George Osborne was pushed by Andrew Marr to declare where his 8 billion would come from, and he couldn't. And it's part of a package.
That is very true.
Yeah, it's true. And it's part of a package of 5 proposals that we hadn't seen before that were in their manifesto, a total of 25 billion unfunded commitments from the Tories, and that's the difference between our two budgets. Our budget, our commitments are funded and are deliverable.
Okay, Mr. Mann, we got problem in Ealing Hospital. You know about that they want to close that hospital. Yes. A&E departments have been shifted to Harrow and things like that. What kind of problems Hounslow is facing?
I think we're facing very, very similar problems, though probably not, which is the main hospital for Hounslow. The accident emergency is retained there. The maternity wing is also under threat in Ealing, which is not happening in the West Mid. But it does put a lot of pressure by those A&E and maternity wings closing in Ealing onto the West Mid, so that we have a hospital which is not growing anytime soon, but now is going to have to take in additional patients from the catchment area of South or Ealing. And that will put, again, it goes back to the point about stress which Ruth made. It puts a lot of stress on the doctors and the nursing staff and the care workers, because stress would lead then to additional resources, which we could really have saved by keeping those sort of accident emergencies and maternity wings going, by taking pressure off. And I think if I take back to the point that Ruth made, retention of doctors, we finding that junior doctors, because of the stress levels, they're looking to leave the NHS and looking to leave the country. Now, that is very, very key. If we address those issues, we will retain a large chunk, because in some ways I disagree that the money is the overriding factor, because a lot of people go into medicine because they genuinely care about the patients and the care service.
Yeah, it is different kind of infrastructure in America, let me tell you that, because there's no NHS there. There's no NHS there because we are privileged actually to have NHS. Absolutely. We don't want to lose it. Yes, you know, Canada copied us. Yeah. You know that. Yeah. Canada copied us, Australia copied us, and New Zealand. Canada copied us in 1989, if I'm right, 1989 or 88. I was there last year, and people are very happy about it. They are saying we are very lucky that we got NHS. And America do not have. In America, there's a different kind of attraction for the doctors. They are private surgeries, and they charge money when you go there. If you're not insured, you can forget about if you ever get healthy. Right. I got a small break, got to have some small break, and we will come back. Okay. Dosto, today we got Ruth Cadbury and Councillor Mann here. Small break, we will come back soon. Dosto, welcome back. Program's name is Sathi Ke Sang Sang. Welcome to MATV Studios. Today we got two guests. One is Amrit Mann, who is a former mayor of Hounslow, and he been councillor in Hounslow for a number of years. And he's you are deputy leader elect also.
I'm deputy leader.
Yeah. Yes. You're deputy leader now. Yes. Okay. And Ruth Cadbury, she's the parliamentary candidate from the Labour Party, from Brentford and Isleworth, and we are talking to them. You know, when the Tories or Conservative Party, they are saying that people who are living in housing associations houses, they can buy their own flat or house at a discount of 35%. And same as Thatcher, what Margaret Thatcher did. What did you think of that idea?
Well, we have a housing crisis in this country, and particularly in London, and a desperate shortage of affordable housing, partly as a result of the right to buy, where a large proportion of our housing stock has gone, and most of Hounslow's good quality family housing with gardens has been sold. There's less and less left, and then to give that right to the remaining stock of social rented housing with housing associations is doing the opposite of helping the housing crisis. The other problem with this proposal is that they're funding it by requiring councils to sell on the open market any vacant good quality stock they have. So it is shocking that, as I say, housing that is being provided by the public sector is now being sold at a discount and not being replenished. And we have, we have 10,000 households in real housing need in Hounslow.
We want to tell our viewers that 35% discount will come from taxpayer.
It'll come from the taxpayer. It'll come from the remaining council housing stock, of which there's already very little.
All right. So basically you are not in favour of that. And the other issue which Southall and Hounslow have, they have these so-called beds in sheds.
Beds in sheds, yeah.
Beds in sheds. And Hounslow, you have got some problems, isn't it?
Well, so I think not just Hounslow, but I think the problem is London.
Well, I refer to Hounslow because you're from Hounslow. Sure. Okay. Well, how can that be resolved?
Well, Hounslow at the moment is looking at the regime whereby we visit most of the properties around Hounslow, whether it's by direct reporting from neighbours or whether it's from satellite aerial photographs that we deem that a particular structure has been put up and it's being used for purposes not compatible with the planning consent that was given. And on that basis, there is a more robust enforcement regime whereby we are looking at these properties, and if these properties are tenanted, then we will enforce to make sure that they are in compliance with our overall policy. Because we are looking, as and Ruth quite rightly said, there is a dire shortage, but we're looking for good quality housing, not substandard, not unsafe properties.
Yeah, is it true that there is a bylaw that you got to give 24 hours notice to the landlord or the owner of the house before you can raid?
That's my understanding. Yes, that but Hounslow has been very successful in enforcing some of the worst examples
because
of
that
poor
law is
quality
there.
housing. Yeah,
You got to change that law because what happens now is once you give the notice, 24 hours notice, you know what they do.
Yeah. Turn a bedroom into a gym.
Yeah, that's right. Or there is a problem there because there are people are talking about it. That's why I brought this up. When we talk about, let's talk on a wider spectrum here. What happened in Mediterranean that 900 people have died. I don't know the exact number. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Well, maybe 800, 900.
This afternoon they were talking about 1,500 people have died in the last week. Have drowned making that crossing. 10,000 have actually reached the shores of Italy this week, but 1,500 have died in the process, and that is a shameful figure on Europe. And I think that Italy, poor old Italy, is bearing the brunt of it, but I think this is a Europe-wide, but also I think it's a worldwide problem where the United Nations needs to get involved, not just leave it to Italy and a few European countries.
So what should be done? Do you think we should take some of those people?
Yeah, I mean, we have a humanitarian crisis, and for those people, their lives must have been horrific for them to want to risk all of their wealth and their lives to make that journey. And there were stories on the news today of the kind of lives people have left in order to take those risks. Well, when people get here, they should be able to apply for asylum, and they should be their lives should be their history should be looked at, and we should provide asylum. This country has always been a this country has always been a haven for people fleeing violence. But we also need to play an international role in addressing some of the issues and tackling some of the situations that people are coming from, and not wash our hands of the crises. They may be environmental crises, they may be conflict situations.
If I can just come in. There was an interview being carried out this afternoon on the BBC where they're interviewing some of the migrants as to the reasons why they were leaving their countries of origin. And one of the key factors that came out was the instability of that particular country, and be it Syria, be it Algeria, Tunisia, Libya. Now, if you roll it back, these countries were stable, although be it under dictatorship
and everything, yes.
But yet, there wasn't this extent of problem which we have currently. Now, some of the Western countries that participated in launching attacks, on Syria, or in terms of Iraq, Afghanistan, and so forth.
It was instigated by Tony Blair and George Bush. We don't take the responsibility.
Well, I mean, I don't. There's no simple answer for any of this. Certainly, Iraq is a particular case, and many of us in the Labour Party did not support the action in Iraq. But there's other situations around the world, such as Somalia, Afghanistan, and Libya, of course. I mean, people who are on those boats are coming from places of conflict from all over the world. So I mean.
But the thing is, Ruth, how many people we can take in? That is what some people will ask. They will say, okay, these people who are coming, we are sorry for them. We are sorry for the families of the people who died. It is not a pleasant situation at all. But how many people this country can take in? because there's going to be a floodgate.
There is always that argument, and certainly some of the arguments that I've heard is that in terms of where we are, the number of people coming in is actually destabilizing current communities, and that leads to levels of violence between inter-communities. And I think that there has to be an overall solution. And I go back to the United Nations, which literally gave in some ways the green light for launching attacks on these countries in the first place. Tony Blair, George Bush, they themselves misled, I would say, a lot of the...
United Nations, I understand what you're saying. United Nations is not going to give the accommodation to these people who are coming in. You know, these European countries, if once you, because I was in Germany has got a problem of this kind of problem. France has got a problem. But France and Germany are bigger country than...
But it's all interrelated, because if they're seeking political asylum, that is all through the United Nations Charter as to why they're being given political asylum. Right. So it's all part and parcel of the same thing. But I think we have to tackle it at source. We need to stop. I mean, this is the end effect where people are migrating.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? But we need to look at the reasons and tackle those in their host countries, be it from stopping them from leaving their shores. I mean, Libya is destabilized. If you look at the number of people that are leaving Libya currently, it's running at 10,000 a week, right, that are reaching Italy. Now, you know, it's likely to increase over the summer months because the weather is now much better and so forth. But that's just one country. We've got Syria, we've got
so many, there's so many destabilized countries, and that includes even Egypt.
But I mean, 95% of the refugees in the world are in the poorest countries of the world.
Correct.
And, you know, we can't ignore the pressure on those economies, which have a fraction of the capacity that our economy has. So we have to realise that this is a global problem. Okay. And I believe that Britain, you know, Britain's always been a welcoming country, and Britain should welcome. But also, if you think about, I mean, the communities watching, people from the communities watching this programme, you know, many of our migrant communities contribute so much to our economy, to our community, to our lives. I mean, many of the people working in the NHS are from other parts of the world.
That goes without saying. 20% doctors, when we were talking about NHS, 20% doctors and nurses are immigrants. So that goes without saying.
Yesterday I met a Libyan doctor. She is desperate to work, to convert her qualifications, so that she's very, very grateful that the UK has offered her refuge, and she is desperate to allow her to get qualified so that she can work and give back to Britain what Britain has given her in terms of refuge.
Okay, talking about the present situation, what kind of figure you have in mind? How many people we can take?
You know, I wouldn't want to put a limit on it. What I would want to ensure is that we have a country that is fair and open, because, you know, we are not an island where you shut the gates, because if you shut the gates, it means you don't have energy, it means you don't have trade, it means you don't have people moving in and out of the country. And, you know, we are very much, and London in particular, is very much part of the global world. And I think we have to think of it in those terms. You can't put a figure on it.
Even Nigel Farage has said that on the humanitarian ground, we should take some people.
Well, I was just going to come on to that. I mean, the Labour Party, we are a responsible party, and we will do our fair share. But unlike the Nigel Farage that you just mentioned, he's been flip-flopping with a few numbers, and our difficulty has always been that to look at numbers per se, because it could be that migration, and we all want to wish, that reduces to a point where it becomes a trickle, where numbers would not be necessary. So to go on to arbitrary numbers, I think is going against the main thrust of what we want to do.
I think we all agree that the solution is not to let people all the time. The solution is to find out the cause of it and see what you can do. Sure. But at this present time, there's so much turmoil going on in Yemen, in Egypt, even you know, in Libya, in Syria, in Afghanistan, you name it. You know, Jordan is in trouble also.
The problem is not helped with the slush of arms left over from previous conflicts. You know, we've seen a dismantling of the USSR into Russian Federation. The Russian Federation themselves have split up. You've got a lot of arms that are awash in that region, and this causes more conflict. And if these countries like the UK, United States, if they actually stuck to not supplying arms, we would have a greater reduction in the conflicts outside abroad. And I think this is one of the key points where what is the largest industry of the United States? It is armaments, and we have to take that into account.
That's a bigger issue. Yeah. That's a bigger issue.
And I mean, we in many areas in the British economy, we have skill shortages, and many of the people coming in have skills, and I think we should make the most of those skills.
Well, some of them must have, as you gave the example of that doctor.
Yeah. I mean, and most, my understanding is many of the people on those boats and using those routes are the skilled, the middle classes, the educated people, because they're the ones who can afford to pay the fees of the traffickers.
Why I was concerned about how many numbers we are going to take, you know, I want you to say something which you didn't, was because it is in your manifesto that you want to extend a refugee program to Syria. Now Syria is in dire strait, you know, it is a lot of problem there. I don't know how many refugees eventually will come. If Labour Party comes into power, you are already saying we will extend a refugee program to Syria. Well, now this new situation has developed that from sub-Saharan countries, these thousands of people are coming by boats and everything.
And many of them have started in Syria. But I think the UK is one of the few EU countries that is not taking its share of Syrian refugees. Germany and France have taken many more from Syria, and they've come from such terrible situations.
We are not denying that. No. But when you talk about Germany and France, they are bigger country than ours.
Well, they're
area-wise and everything.
Similar population density overall. You know, they're not that
area-wise,
different.
France is much bigger. It's bigger than Germany.
Yeah. Well,
we are smaller. Anyway, that because people do talk about numbers. Because when I look at it, apart from what you said, that we should take these refugees who are coming in. I know where you're coming from. It is because this country has always been generous in taking in refugees. But then you got a manifesto which says that we'll extend the refugee program to Syria. It's just Syria, there may be some other countries as well. When we talk about the numbers, Labour Party is not giving the opportunity when they come into power to have referendum on EEC or EU. But Conservative Party is. Now, if you don't give the opportunity to people to say what they want, whether they want to stay in or stay out, if you see the last year's figure, we got 300,000, 297,500 to be exact, net migration into this country. And that trend has been there since coalition government took power, and it started with the Labour in 2004. So therefore, we will have roughly that kind of figure coming into this country from EEC countries, yes?
Well, who can predict what the situation will be in the future?
Well, Labour Party's prediction has already been wrong. You know, when in 2004, Tony Blair said only 13,000 people will come from Poland, we ended up with 600,000.
And the Labour Party has admitted that it did get it wrong on EU immigration, and we should have had, you know, we should have delayed
exactly like France and Germany did.
We should. I mean, we said, you know, we acknowledge now that there should have been some just sort of care taken in terms of when the accession states joined the migration, because we put that in later for when Bulgaria and Romania joined. But there's a couple of points.
Sorry, can I interrupt? I've got break again. I'm so sorry. We will start from that point, later on. Dosto, we got Councillor Mann in the studio, Amrit Mann, and Ruth Cadbury, who is the parliamentary candidate from the Labour Party also. back. You can see actually on the screen my email ID. If you can please give me your feedback, I shall be grateful. I know you always write to me. There are so many emails, thousands of them. I cannot really answer back, individually, but thank you very much. It helps us a lot. Ruth, before the break, you were talking about Romania and Bulgaria and all those other countries, Poland, Croatia, Albania, all these countries, they were old Soviet Union bloc countries, which we wanted to attract. When I say we Europeans, that includes Britain, we wanted to attract them so that Russia becomes weaker. That is a political argument. And do you think in future there will be more expansion of EU?
Well, there might be. I mean, I couldn't say for sure, but I think what's important is that Britain on its own would be a very small economy and would be quite isolated without being part of Europe. And 3 million jobs in the UK on average, roughly, are dependent on trade with the EU and being part of the EU. And if we were to even consider coming out of the EU, a large chunk of our economy would be threatened. We cannot survive as a small island nation on our own.
But then, on the other hand, 100 top businessmen, the corporate executives, they wrote a letter to.
Well, not all of them were. The Daily
Telegraph.
Yeah,
I thought
exactly,
you would say. Yeah. But they wrote a letter to Daily Telegraph that if the Labour Party comes into power, there will be great loss. It will be endemic and it will be disaster and all that. How far they are right?
Well, I wouldn't say that there were 100 top business people that signed that letter, and some of them asked that their names be withdrawn because it wasn't the same.
It was on the front page of the Telegraph.
Yes,
they said 100, exactly. And they counted all those people.
There
were 100.
But there were 100,
including summations also.
Yeah, there were 100 people involved in business who signed the letter, but that was not the same as the UK's 100 top PLCs. Because generally PLCs want to stay out of party political allegiance on the whole, because they've got businesses to run. But most large businesses in the UK value being in the EU, and actually find it's essential for them to be able to run their businesses, to be able to trade easily and so on. And also the movement of skilled labour is absolutely essential to business.
Because the thing is, the ordinary people, especially the working class, as you have seen in Gate Gourmet, is that right? That company at Heathrow Airport?
Yeah, that was some time ago.
The people who were working there, they're mostly Asians. They're working at £10 an hour, £15 an hour. As soon as the flood of Polish workers came, they started getting...
The Koki are phrases associated with which TV presenter? Paddy McGuinness, Keith Lemon, or David Dickinson?
Okay, I've never watched it, but it is something Paddy McGuinness would say on Take Me Out, I think.
Should we light it up?
Yes, please.
Let's take it, please. Is that the right answer? Is it Paddy McGuinness? Yes!
Okay.
Right. 3 counters, Marios.
Okay, this is it. Drop zone 2, please.
Light it up, please.
Okay.
You can all see where it's got to go, just there.
Yeah. Maybe.
Go on, Marios.
Yeah.
Come on, Marios.
Yeah. Flat.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
Get on it, get on it, get on it. Is this your £10,000 drop, Marios?
Go on.
Don't edge away. Don't edge
Go
away.
on.
Don't edge away.
Oh.
Oh!
Okay.
One across the tipping point. Let's add that £50 in. £2,300 goes into the machine. Got 2 to go.
Drop zone 2, please.
Light it up, please.
Go on. Oh. No.
Come on now. Bit of lateral, just a little nudge on it. Go on, go on.
Okay, that's
It's another 5 across the tipping point. Another £250, £2,550.
So this is it.
Drop zone 2.
Drop zone 2, please.
Light it up, please. Okay.